All right, hello again. I am here on this. I don't want to, you know what? Me and this camera. Maybe this is my better side. I think so. How do I do this? Hold on. Maybe that's better. But I still, I don't know. Yeah, trying here to, I just want a better, that's kind of better. Yeah, I'm not really doing too much right now. I'm just kind of taking a break before, doing the things that I do at night, usually work stuff, art stuff, So the art kind of thing that's happening now is, or has been, like graphic work, like, I guess like the common term is like vector work. But what I've noticed is that people like artistically, vectors, like graphic work has been named vector work. Even me, like as a graphic designer, like the graphic design part of me used to think like vector work, what is that? And I always associated it with like lineless digital drawings, like, and then maybe like of the flat style. But, ultimately vector is a type of file. It's a type of, oh gosh, it is a kind of art, like, it is a specific kind of approach, but it's really in how, the file is made and how it's saved, like there's vector files, but then when you're in Illustrator and you're designing, it's like true vector work. But then you can also design vector work in Photoshop or whatever other programs. But ultimately, like all of it is graphic work. So I've been in that realm, I've been looking up like tutorials online, like how to do vector, all kinds of things, in the direction of what my job right now, my job in general has been calling me to do, I guess right now, because it's been building a library of images. So it's like you don't have to worry about licensing and laws and stuff, and it's all like original work since it's done by me. But what I've found is that there's like a lot of really good vector work out there that's even like for free, or by subscription to certain sites. And that kind of was something new for me to learn about, because I've always been one to pay attention to like graphic design all around me, like in any graphic design class, they'll tell you in some part of the course to notice the graphic design, in the world that is around you. So, but I've always done that, maybe it was because of the class that I started doing that, but I've always enjoyed like looking at the way digital art looks, like just what people are doing. It's kind of like going through like a gallery, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. I'm trying to get my YouTube page to have something not crazy on it. Not saying that what's coming up is crazy, but sometimes it is a little crazy. Not like it in an obscene way, but it's just like there's some nonsense on YouTube, I know. So, but anyway, So a lot of times when I've been looking at digital work, like I've just always assumed that all of it was built by whoever made it by hand, like from scratch. And what I've noticed is that there's like a whole industry devoted towards providing people, and I'm assuming artists, because I can't imagine just some, person who doesn't do much artistic stuff, period. Like maybe someone who dabbles, maybe that's about as far as it goes, but I'm thinking that these sites and companies are catering towards like artists. So I say all that to say, like, a lot of stuff hasn't been made by scratch. And I can kind of see why, because I've been trying different things digitally, and it's been kind of challenging. I'm not used, I just got used to the notion of having like bad days at work. Like, not every day is going to be like a good day, but it kind of comes around. Like, I guess with this, it's different because it's the kind of art that I'm, I guess, kind of the most comfortable with. I think I've just been doing like a lot of art work for people, and there's a certain pressure that comes along with it. Um, uh, and so when I get to like an end of like a work day, I'm kind of like, if I'm disappointed, I'm kind of like blown, because artistically, like I'll get blown on my own. Like if I do something and it's not so hot, and I'm like, ah. But when it's like for other people, it's just a weird, like, difference, I guess. I didn't experience these days too much tattooing. I think with tattooing, like I didn't get enough clients. I don't think, and I did have, I guess I did have the feeling of like doing bad work, but I got that feeling like every time I did a tattoo, because I always felt like it could have been better. So I do remember those days of getting like plain angry at, whatever I produced, and then I would have to look at it later and say, okay, it's not so bad. I think I'm just getting used to that kind of feeling, like in the kind of work that I'm doing now. And I think because it's not new, because I have digital experience, but now I'm like going from like out here to like, you know what I'm saying? Like bringing it in to like this, like that. And I have less of a, not less of a freedom, but less of like an opening to work with, I have to kind of stay concentrated, and that's very cool, because in turn what happens is that it just makes me grow artistically. Sometimes I get to these things where I'm trying, especially when I want to be adventurous and try something that's going to be like really unique, and ultimately in my eyes that would equal to being beneficial to the whole project. If I get to a point at the end and I'm like, okay, I'm done, but it's not what I wanted, it's a different kind of feeling. But I had to understand that it was kind of like the same feeling that I was having before, So, but with vector work, it's very fun. It's like the kind that I'm doing is like the oversimplified, geometric, very fundamentally vector kind of work. And what I mean by fundamentally vector, I mean like the pen tool in Illustrator, and a lot of symmetry, or at least pseudo symmetry, not necessarily like mirror, but like a shape like that the computer did fundamentally, versus one that I would draw free-handedly. Like it could be this coffee cup, and if the computer does it this line and this circle and this handle, everything is like completely different. It's kind of like when you have, like, this mug most likely came from a factory, and it's not made by hand. Sometimes they can be made by hand to be this perfect, but but imagine making this like without a potter's wheel and just like molding it in clay, but not machined, no tools, no wheel, no nothing, versus like factory made. That's kind of the difference that I'm talking about, like between drawing something like with the pen tool and all of these like digital techniques, like, and I've learned a lot more, and they're weird, like a lot of programs don't have like certain shapes, and I'm used to that to a degree, but to like get a perfect kind of like like a wine glass, and you have like the glass and you have like the stem, like to get this shape just to be kind of like this, you have to start with an oval and then go in with a square over it, and then use certain functions to have the square cut off part of the oval that it's sitting on top of within the program. And it's to me it's halfway stupid, but it's not. It's really my ignorance and lack of experience with doing it that way. But to get that fundamentally perfect kind of like style, you kind of have to do it that way. And that's within one program versus another. Like sometimes, like between a Photoshop and Illustrator, I can pretty much do the same thing in one that I can do in the other. But they both have their advantages. And I spoke about this in another like little video diary that I did. Like, I wanted to get to know Illustrator for what it could do versus Photoshop. And with Photoshop, it has more versatility as far as being artistic, like painting and like brushes. Like, I could get lots of brushes for Photoshop really easily. But in Illustrator, you kind of have to build your own or change certain things. And, I guess there's more to learn because it's more technical. Technical in one kind of area. Not one, because I don't even know how much Illustrator has to offer, honestly. Like, I think I'm better with, not better, I think Photoshop kind of caters to me as an artist. But then Illustrator has its qualities that as an artist are very useful to me. So I think together they form like the perfect blend of things. Like, Illustrator is a challenge. When I have a victory in Illustrator, it's like it feels really good. I learn things a lot and quickly with Illustrator because I'm comfortable within it. But now I'm looking at more advanced things, and so as I learn those, like when I'm learning them, I might be a little frustrated, but it becomes a very useful thing in the end. Like creating like my own fonts and using the pen tool and handles and everything like that. That's the versatility I'm looking for, rather than stock images, and stock fonts, even though it's a beautiful thing to be able to use pre-made fonts, because I'm not trying to sit here and make fonts all day, especially not an entire alphabet that's perfect. I would, but I just don't have time for that. There's things within this project that I want to do, but I'm allotted a certain number of hours a day, and I wouldn't like some things I choose to use my time to do that I think will be like positive for the project overall, that I could use in the long run. But to sit and build like an alphabet of letters that would take probably a week, that's not lucrative as far as my time is concerned. And then what I was saying before about Photoshop, I'm very comfortable with Photoshop, and I know it, and artistically, like, it just gives me a lot of freedom. But the more I learn in Illustrator, the more I learn about Photoshop. And even with building some of these images, there are some that are popular. Like in the graphic design world, there's, trends and things that become popular, and you can see them just, in everything, especially like things that change a lot, like YouTube, people's thumbnails, you can see the design there, and you can see some graphic design work that reflects the modern kind of trends or the most recent kind of trends. And what was I gonna say? So one of the, some of the trendier things, like I have to kind of research to figure out like how they were done, because sometimes I look for like a tutorial, and then I figure out like this isn't an artistic technique. This is a product. This is an actual tool that is leading people to practice this style. And then I find out about the tool, and then I'm like, okay, I get where you guys, came from now. But then even in Photoshop, like, that led to me exploring more brushes than I usually would. And it also led me to, having a familiarity come up. Because I ran into brushes that really were like painting. And I began to, and I've seen these things in the brushes, like the way that the strokes reflect the paint that is on the brush digitally. But I just learned a little bit more about it, So going back and forth, like they just do it's just a good system. They complement each other really well. So that's where I am with things. I'm finishing up a book illustration project, which is cool. It's taken me a lot longer than I realized it would, or that I thought it would, because I had to kind of go through training and like a learning curve period for I guess this one partnership, I don't know what to call it. It's kind of like a client, it's kind of like a job. And then with this other client, that work is like fine art, it's like a lot of pointillism and sketching and people and scenes. It's very cool because I haven't done a lot of scene work for people. And I've noticed that the practice that I had in my own, which was like scattered and all over the place, working with a person who has a finished project, and who really knows her characters and really knows her chapters and her scenes. It's a book, but she knows it's weird because people can kind of like see their story. I have the feeling of the story that I want to tell, but as far as like seeing it in like timeline succession, I haven't had that vision yet. So working with this person who really knows her work, and then getting the description of all the scenes that I'm illustrating, it's helped me like see how it should look. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Basically, I'm seeing the result come out pretty well in my work because I haven't seen myself put specific characters that are used in almost every illustration in different scenarios in this way before, like at all. And I've always kind of tried. So, and I haven't had this kind of success like the way that she has. So, artistically, that's helped me. As a writer, that's helped me. Not like a writer, more like I have a story to tell that happens to have to include writing, but I have been drawing the feelings that I get as they come so far in this, and what I'm working on now, or how I'm working on it now. So yeah, so I think that's about it. I'm still trying to paint, but I really just have to get caught up with what I'm doing now. So I haven't painted in a few days, but that's cool because before I was pretty much on a roll, and I did finish a painting. So that's mission accomplished. That's an accomplishment, which I'm just hanging on to. I have another one on the easel that should be finished soon once I get back to work on it. I have schoolwork to get caught up on, but it's nothing like severe. And I'm still trying to like practice. Like I still have these practice, sessions in mind that I want to do and how they should look, like that really sketchy painting or sketching like so many different versions of like the same thing, like all these it's like I'm throwing up sets over here. but like, how you see pages of like hands, like in all these kind of directions. I always wanted to kind of do that and have it be like fast, but mine turned out like different. So I haven't really gotten to that style. I don't know if I'm trying to change myself too much, or if it's just like not in me, or I don't know. So I keep trying that. So, but I haven't been in the mind frame to be able to have a lot of energy to, do anything outside of what I've been doing so far. I think my mind is just getting used to this kind of workload, or this work style, this workload, this work subject matter, like there's so many little firings off in my head for the art that I'm doing now. It's like I get more tired along with all the other thinking that I do. So not that I'm some big deep thinker, but I think that little weak young grasshopper is a noob, and noobs tire out really quickly. So still training. Anyway, on that note, I'm gonna get to it. Oh, I'm gonna eat dinner too. I almost forgot. I haven't forgotten. My stomach won't let me forget. So I just thought about everything. When I make these videos, it feels like it's later in the night, and I made this one earlier. So then I thought like, hey, I haven't eaten yet. I'm not like starving. It's not like that kind of statement. It's just like, I think I'm just looking forward to it. I like feel it. So, okay. I'm leaving right now. I'm leaving this place right now. And maybe 3D rendering. Maybe that's gonna come up too. And that's one of those things that I was talking about earlier in the video, is like just making sure that I'm not like using so much time. But like 3D rendering is one of those things. I don't really know too much about it. Like I do to a degree. Like I've had classes in it, I've done it, but like, to get to a good finished point, and I'm not that good at it, honestly, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I have experience with it, but for me to consider like a finished product in it, a real professionally finished product, I have to go and research like just brief overviews, just so I can know that there aren't imperative things that I'm leaving out because I just don't know they exist. And that's the kind of the thing that I run into with creating like this vector work and stuff like that with Photoshop and Illustrator, like I like looking at, some tutorials and stuff like that, because sometimes there are techniques that I've never done before, and that's like one of the beauties of watching tutorials and reading tutorials. Because there's so many things in these programs, sometimes you can get caught up in doing things the same way that you've been doing them. And that's kind of cool because you can get really good at like doing something. And that's something that I would love to have happen to me, because sometimes I'm like that, and I'm just everywhere. And I haven't like mastered to even really learn the one thing that I've put down because I got interested in something else. When it comes to art, that's how I am. Because I figure art is like art, it is one thing. It's just I haven't been concentrating on one thing. So I really like the look of work that is a very concentrated, like specialty kind of approach. But in learning how to do what I'm doing now, it's helped me become more polished in my end results. And it's not just with the projects that I'm doing. I try to do it especially in the projects, but overall I'm just trying to refine, and hopefully I'll get that look that I'm looking for, like the very concentrated, like specific look. So right now I think I have not gotten there, which is kind of, it's not disturbing, but I want to show something awesome. And I do awesomeness not as often as I'd like, but I've had a couple projects where I'm like, that has that look, and I can accomplish that. But then I have like all these before I'm working towards getting this other thing done again. And then when I sit down and I do something a few times and I start getting a little bit better at it, like with the Victor work, that's happened. So I think it's just a matter of time, like, time being in it and being comfortable that the result that is wanted will happen. So I gotta go. I think I'm just really hungry right now. So on that note, I'll talk to you later. Bye. You know where I get that from? It's from Blow, where there's a scene where these two characters are having kind of a fight, these two dudes, and I think one is an exporter and another is an importer, and they clash heads because of whatever disgruntledness is that they're having together. And he's like, bye, and then he's like, bye, bye, bye. And I thought it was the funniest. It's a really funny scene. I wouldn't say it's one of the funniest, but I have a little Rolodex of scenes in my head that I always keep. So that's why I'm like, bye, because that's where it came from. So I have logic, but I'm being illogical right now. I think this is just me being really hungry and mind fuzzied. So I gotta go. Bye.